Is Gen X the last generation to really experience life at its finest in the United States? Stick around. Let's talk about it.
All I need are some tasty waves, cool buzz, and I'm fine.
What's up, everybody? It's Rad. Welcome back to the channel. Back with another video. And today, I thought it would be interesting to go over this comment that I saw on a video. Now, it wasn't a comment on one of my videos. It was on a video channel that I follow, and it was regarding a video of, you know, people wanting to move out of America. Kind of, I did a similar one before, whether I wanted to retire out of America, and this one is kind of a combination. Like, look, you have people that whatever administration comes into office, you have people that want to leave the country because of that. A lot of people talking about that right now. Um, you have other people that are moving out because they claim they can't afford to live in America anymore. And so it's kind of all over the spectrum. The video is not necessarily about that. My video is not about that. And this video is kind of that the comment was left on is kind of touches on all of that. Now, with me, I'm still back and forth as to what I want to do. I would like to, travel a lot more and do stuff like that moving forward. Um, but I do like where I live, and I love my country. And but again, the love of your country doesn't necessarily still make it the best place to live, depending on what you want out of life. My mom, as I've said before in videos, retired in Ecuador 8 years ago. She's almost 10 years in now. And she did it because retiring on her Social Security um, was going to be a struggle to live here. And she had some friends that live down there. And even though their dollar is the American dollar, and they have suffered inflation down there, overall, the cost of living to live down there is extremely less expensive than it is here. Um, Noted, it's got its issues. She lives in a normal, good house with air conditioning, electricity, cable, all that stuff. But it's different. And I always encourage people, before you complain about where you live, you should probably travel to, I don't want to say third world countries, but countries where their standard is a lot less than America, and then stay there for a couple weeks. And most of the time, you'll appreciate where you live. And so nevertheless, you have people that want to leave the country, more so because of the cost of living. Mainly, that's what I see people talking about. The people that talk about leaving because of the president, they never do it. They just talk about it. If you don't believe me, in about a month, just look up all of the Hollywood actors who said that they would leave the country as soon as the new president took office, and you'll see that they're probably still here. Or maybe they're not because their houses in LA burned down and they're somewhere else. So, um, but most people talk about it because of cost of living, and it is a hell of a lot cheaper to live somewhere else, in other countries, than it is here currently. We'll see how that happens. But I'll throw the screenshot up and also give credit to this awesome comment. It's actually a really big channel. I mean, she's got over 100,000 subscribers, but it's Consumer Debt Chit Chat, I believe is the name of her channel, but I'll wind up popping that up. So she responded to this video that, I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull this up. And she responded to the video that Jack put up. And so she says this: I am Gen X, age 57. I graduated from high school in 1985. I think Gen X is one of the last generations, if not the last generations, to really experience life in the United States at its finest. Academically, you could afford school. Apartment rents were just a couple $100 a month. If you had a couple, if you had a college degree job, if you had a college degree, jobs were easy to find. Trades were equally easy. The malls were bustling with people, and you know how I love malls. You were patient to get whatever you ordered in the mail. Kids could walk to school a couple miles and no one blinked an eye. If you got smacked over the head, you probably deserved it. And let me scroll to the next one here. You probably deserved it. And let me see, I got to find my place here. And you learned from it. You met with friends and you always spoke to each other eye to eye, especially when you were sitting together, which kind of goes back to the last video I did about online reviews and people like that. Maybe I'm biased, I admit, but I genuinely believe that Gen X is one of the last generations, and perhaps the older millennials, to really understand how great life can be without all the technology that surrounds us today and the extreme political divides, which kind of goes back to what um, I mentioned earlier in the video. I mean, top on the political divides. I think politics has always been as nasty as it is. And excuse me, my camera is darkening, so I'm sorry. Um, Politics has always been really divisive, but back in the 80s, you had the nightly news, which was for 30 minutes. There were no, I think CNN started at some point, but the majority of 70s and early 80s, mid 80s, you did not have 24-hour news. And you had your newspaper and you had your local news, and then you had the nightly news. So you weren't able to really be brainwashed left or right by constant news feeds. And then there was that motto back in the day that the three things that you didn't talk about was religion, politics, and money. I think it was right. Now with social media, everybody just thinks that they can do that. So so let's break down her comment here. Sorry, I'm looking at my laptop here. Um, so talking about school, I didn't go to college in the 80s. I graduated. Actually, I didn't graduate, but it should have been in 92. Got kicked out in 1990 or 91, something like that. But I went to college, and I remember enrolling in a community college, and it was just a couple $100 for the few classes that I took plus the books. So $300 or $400 total. And I think it was 3 classes that I winded up enrolling at Del Mar College in Corpus. So it was definitely a lot cheaper for school. I don't know about a university because I never went to one, but I'm pretty sure that they were a lot cheaper then too. Rent, again, didn't rent anything in the 80s, but I did in the early 90s. And when I had moved up to San Antonio, because you can always compare with the smaller town that maybe cost of living is cheaper because normally it is. But I moved up to the center of San Antonio and eventually got me a little efficiency apartment. Um, so it wasn't even a 1 bedroom; it was an efficiency, but it was a really good size one, really cute. I loved it. It was really cool and a good area of town next to all the good restaurants, bars, town, and the major highways. And I think I was paying $450 a month for that. That might seem high to some people, but remember, this is the 7th largest city in the country, and to have a good size apartment in a good neighborhood in a good side of town, is everything. And it was close to my work as well, and it's probably even cheaper. But then electricity and water. Um, I was able to live on, I think, $10 an hour, something like that. So $10 an hour. So I was able to get all of that in 1996. So it was probably cheaper. Your money went a lot longer, a lot further, um, even in the 80s. So college degrees, if you got them, you found a job pretty easily in your field, right? Most people back then didn't go to school for engineering and then get a job in business management running an office supply store, or they didn't get a job in a business and then end up working as a healthcare provider. I mean, I know that sounds a little drastic, but nowadays people just want to see degrees. It seems like, oh, you have a degree. And I mean, I have several friends that have degrees that don't even work in the field that they graduated in, but they got the job. And there's still companies out there, the bigger ones like Procter and Gamble, even Sherwin-Williams, because my friend worked there for years, and I know you're probably watching, Abel, and he knows that when you go into a Sherwin-Williams store and you're seeing that guy that's standing behind the counter, some paint smeared on his shirt, collar, whatever, that dude or girl has a college degree. You can't even work the front desk without a college degree in Sherwin-Williams. I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's their rules. And but back in the day, you would be able to get your college degree and pretty much get into the workforce fairly quickly. Um, and in the same for the trades as well. If you were an electrician, you were a plumber, you were a mechanic, you were always going to find work. with a small percentage of people that maybe didn't, depending on what area of the country that you lived, you found work. So again, that was an awesome time to experience the boom of the 80s and the 90s. Now, again, I preface this with this is not a video where I'm blaming millennials or Gen X, because millennials started in 1980. Even my son, who was born in 93, still experienced a lot of what Gen X did, and then the millennials born in the early 80s. So, we still had a phone on the wall. It was a corded phone. We still had a lot of the stuff that we grew up with. We still had a VCR. I don't even think I had a DVD player until the mid 2000s, right? And so even say the younger millennials still got to experience a lot, but because it was also on its way out. But I think the vibe of this comment, and only Gen X I think would get this, just like only Boomers would get their version if they were telling their version of the story about how it was in the 50s or whatever. It was the tone that you can't recreate. I love the fact that the youth now, the younger Gen Zs and older Gen Zs, are embracing 80s music. They're embracing 80s technology. They're embracing the clothing and the styles and stuff like that. But I think that only goes so far. Like the that's what we had, yes, but you'll never have that. And again, it's not their fault, but you'll never have that vibe that we had of being a latchkey kid, and this is mainly towards Gen Zs, because like I said, millennials still, they pretty much had a lot of this. Um, just the vibe of being able to take a walk and just let we'll continue on with this. Malls were bustling. You know how I feel about malls. Again, um, they were the places to go and hang out with your friends. They were always packed. You try on your clothes, right? What a novel idea! You try it on, and then buy them if they fit. I still have a hard time. I do order some clothing. Like I said, I got my new. You can't see it on here, but it's Nerd Herd. So any of you nerds out there that have watched Chuck, I love that show, and so I got me a shirt. But most of the clothes I get, I either thrift them or I buy them in person at the store. I definitely don't order shoes through the mail. As you saw in a video previously, I go to the band store at the mall and try them on and spend a lot of time there because, I like being in there, and I buy my shoes. I do have some work clothes that I bought from Amazon, and of course you kind of have to guess. You get lucky, you order the right size, or a size too small, you got to send them back, and then the next size they send you, you get it right, and then therefore when you order that same one, um, but we would go in person, we would talk to people, and we would have fun. And if we ordered something in the mail, we had to wait for it. I know it's corny, but as I told y'all before in a previous video, I have a subscription to TV Guide, because they still do exist, just not in the way that we were used to them in the 80s. And there's another magazine that's about the memories or whatever. I'll throw up a screenshot when I do editing, because I can't think of the name of it right now. And they kind of come simultaneously. And the first time I did it, I got a thing I saw a little card at a store, and I got it and I mailed it in. And I still do have a checkbook. I wrote a check. I put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and I sent in my subscription. The funny thing is most of these, they're catered to, like when you see the ads and stuff like that, just like on the free antenna channels you can get that show the Jeffersons and Magnum PI and all that. The commercials, you can tell they're geared towards boomers. I mean, all the commercials are for really old people. Sorry, boomers, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet, but they're geared towards that. So it was cool to mail it. But then when it was time to renew it, they sent it to me in the mail, and they wanted to charge me 3 times the price. And then I went online, and actually I didn't send it in. Then they were like, hey, they sent me an email, and they reduced the price. So it's kind of weird how I was going to renew it by mail again, but then they upped the price, but almost forces you to go online to renew it, and then you get the better price. So moving on, under freedom and independence, kids were able to walk a couple miles to school, no problem. No one panicked, and it gave us a sense of independence. So I think, and then again, as Gen X parents to our children, that's when the helicoptering kind of got involved, and that's that vibe that I'm talking about, that the younger generations didn't get, because most of us at that time grew up and were like, holy shit, that's crazy. My mom used to let us walk to school 2 miles by ourselves when we were 8 years old. Um, and we just didn't allow it. We didn't do it. And that took away that sense of independence that we could have instilled into them, that we got, and most of them didn't get. So again, not their fault. But and then again, if you got in trouble, as you said, you get smacked upside the head, and you learn from it. I got smacked upside the head. I got whipped across my ass. I got a lot of whippings for what I did. And yeah, I still remember them to this day as a 50-year-old. I remember a few of them where they taught me, right? I learned my lesson from them. Face-to-face friendships, again, when you go to the mall, we were able to hang out with our friends, eye-to-eye conversations, not text message conversations, no distractions because we weren't picking up our phone every 30 seconds to stare at something with what do you call that? The notifications that pop up, and you're just constantly trained now because you're addicted to it. So when you were sitting together, there was actual real connection. No notifications popping up. When you were at dinner in the 80s, when you were at a restaurant, people were engaged with one another. They were talking with one another. Unless it was at a McDonald's or whatever, your mom just basically took you there. So that could be the babysitter. You run out there. And I tell you what, in Texas, when you go to the playgrounds that are, you know, outside, it's, during the summertime, if you're not wearing pants, you burn the layer of skin off the back of your legs when you're going down the slide or playing with stuff, or your hands as you're grabbing the merry-go-round and whatnot. But we still loved it. And we would play there for a long time. And I think that's back when you can smoke at McDonald's. So my mom would send us outside, huff on some cigarettes, which she quit now, but that was still a vibe that you can no longer have. It's just not available anymore. But we definitely didn't have distractions. We were more engaged with one another. And again, I don't know, how do you teach that nowadays? How can you get the youth of today to feel more, have more of a sense of independence and to be more engaged with people? Just telling them, hey, put your phone down doesn't seem to work. So what can be done? Drop a comment and let me know, what are some ideas that you can do to make kids more engaged away from technology? So I'm going to continue on here. We didn't have tech overload, right? So, I may be a little biased, but older millennials experience the amazing life can be without the tech constantly buzzing around. So again, the people that were born in the 80s, working their way up. I got, my mom had the little suitcase phone. I think I've showed it on the channel before. Sorry. But then I got my first cell phone. I think it was in maybe 1992, and it was the Motorola flip phone, but it was a big triangle like that. And then it would flip down here, and then you would pull the antenna up. And it was a black and white screen, or like, the digital screen like you'd have on a calculator, and text messaging didn't exist. And a lot of people still had pagers. I think I had a pager too. So my son, being born in 93, obviously by the time he was old enough to remember, 6, 7, 8 years old, I had a normal size cell phone at that point in time. But he didn't get one. I don't even think, my two youngest, they got them when they were 6th or 7th grade, because I didn't really want them to have it. But I think my oldest, I don't know, Theo, if you actually watch this one, you can drop a comment and let us all know. Did you have a cell phone in high school? I don't think you did. Because I remember when he worked at McDonald's at the Walmart, he would, I would come and pick him up before he had his driver's license, and he would have to call the house to say, hey, don't pick me up yet because I'm not off or whatever, because he didn't have a cell phone. And he was born in 93. So even back then, I think by the time he was 16 or 17-year-old kids, it was not common for them to have a cell phone, I guess. And maybe unless you were a rich kid, you might have had one. So, yeah, so there wasn't social media feuds. There was no political debates online 24/7 in your face. It was just life. It was connected with none of the digital noise. Again, that's not Gen Z's fault, but you can, eliminate the digital noise if you choose to put your phone down and choose not to watch TV all the time. But again, I don't know how to put into words how again, I keep saying that word, that vibe of the feeling of being able to walk to school on your own, the feeling of coming home and your mom or dad's still at work and you had to make dinner, or you had to cook for yourself. You had to sit down and do your own homework by yourself. Yes, I know kids still do that today because parents still do work. It's not like that was eliminated. Um, but it was a lot more common in our day. And then just the engagement with your friends, what you did to have fun, was totally different. And it just, I think it instilled some things in us that we just don't have today. And I don't know if it can be taught, you know. I mean, looking back, it was an amazing time to grow up. I don't apologize for it. Uh, but what about you? Do you think Gen X, we enjoyed life in America at its finest, and that is no longer here? It's not a political thing. I don't mean at its finest because this guy's in, this guy's not in. I mean just the overall experience, right? Of we have Republicans and Democrats that follow this channel, and the one thing that we can all agree on is how we grew up in the 70s and 80s, and the memories that we have, the good memories that we have from that, and the bad memories that we have that might have taught us to be who we are today. Um, but what about you? What do you think? Drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts, and what are your thoughts moving forward? How is America going to be? I'm 50. Like I said, the oldest Gen X right now is what, 59? The youngest would be 44, 45. I mean, what are your thoughts about the country? Is it, would you consider moving out because of expenses? Would you consider moving out just because you want to travel? Would you keep your base of operations here and then go around the globe, which, I'm probably going to do? There's still a lot of stuff to see here in America, by the way. A lot of stuff. Big country, in case you haven't checked. But anyway, drop a comment, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for future notifications on my videos. And with that said, I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you on the next video.